Welcome back to Endless Tangents. This is episode 11. I'm your host, Twiggles, with my trusty co-host, Zamb1esaurus. How are you today?
It's been a crazy week. Still training for my triathlon and being able to try to get a workout in here and there with having the kids. It just makes it very difficult.
Yeah,
You're exhausted by the evening, and it can really make it hard to work out.
absolutely. I struggle. I have all the usual excuses, but being with the kids, I think, is a healthy topic that we'll probably get into in the near future. So looking forward to it. But
Yeah.
for today, it is
Well,
actually
how have you been doing?
I've been doing similar to you. Lots going on. Things going on with the family, things going on everywhere. And like you said, there just never seems to be enough time. I do try to work out here and there. I'm not training for a particular race anymore, but it is something that does help motivate me. So I may need to sign up for something else. I unfortunately wasn't feeling great either not too long ago. So that kind of put a damper on things. Like you said, things just come out of the blue. Not feeling great, this lingering sort of illnesses and just unknowns, while also going to the office and taking care of the kids. It just seems endless.
Yeah.
But it is critical to find time. I was just talking to someone that if we don't prioritize our time for working out, then when are we going to make the time? And it'll catch up to us in the long run. So with all that said, though, thank you for asking. This rotates into one of my other favorite topics. It seems like everything's a favorite topic, but this genuinely, next to sleep, is probably my number two. I definitely think about it a lot. And today's main driver is food and the simplicity of it all. We'll go into the wonders of it, the nutrition side of it, the potential financial impact of it, cravings and things that we enjoy, trying to save time, save money, and everything in between. So looking forward to having this episode with you. And just as a friendly reminder, we are not nutritionists or medical professionals. We do recommend, we're just sharing from our experiences of what we have found works. We're definitely always open to learning new things. There's always new technology, gadgets, and quick tricks that we could learn. So we do look forward to hopefully hearing some of your stories. We'll have a shout out towards the end of the episode and after you've listened, and give us some feedback. We would love to learn, and that's kind of the point of the point of our podcast. So, yeah. How do you think about this topic? What kind of comes to mind as we talk about this and all the different directions we can go in?
Like, my brain is like literally exploding. There's so many different things you could talk about. I mean, just there's nutrition. There's nutrition with ADHD and other folks who are neurodivergent. There's, meal prepping. There's a financial aspect. There's a mental aspect. There's so many different things that you can talk about with nutrition. And I think, as I have grown over time, I have learned so many different things, watched a lot of YouTube channels, read a lot of books. There's a lot to unwrap with nutrition that a lot of people don't really give the time and thought to. And it can make for an eye-opening conversation.
Totally. Awesome. So I'll take it away. I think the main area that I want to bring up, like you said, there's many angles, and this is probably going to be a part one of many over the course of our podcast. But for me, what does food really mean to me? Deep down, I think as I've grown up, a lot of the topics that we've talked about really come from childhood. And something that I kind of grew up with was always to finish the food on your plate, sometimes to a detriment. When I see food, I really struggle to waste it. Coming from immigrant parents, you didn't always know if you had food. It wasn't always available, especially meat or going out and eating out. All these different things were all luxuries. And it's really difficult for me. And we've talked about the psychology of money. We've talked about relationships and all these different things. But food is so critical because no matter what, everyone needs to consume food. We need the calories. We need the nutrition for us to grow, for us to remain smart and just be able-bodied and all the above. So I think kind of going into this, it's interesting. Let's talk a little bit about just, what the food kind of impact is on a daily basis. And one of the things that I think I have always struggled with is just getting the food that I want, also in a format that is financially stable and not too extreme and too extravagant, but also finding the time. we just started and we just talked about just not even finding time to exercise and work out, let alone meal prep. We're very fortunate that our wives help out as well as us. We try to cook when we can. I know we both enjoy doing this. But there's ultimately, are you a good cook? Sometimes it takes a lot of recipes and a lot of failing before you figure out what you like. I know my father-in-law got to a point, and we never understood this, but we're starting to, where he's like, why would I want to go out? I actually like my own cooking, the flavor of it, the spices, the salt levels, the oil levels. It's just not the same because when you go out, these places are encouraging you to come back and eat their food. They often put lots of salt, lots of fat, lots of oil, and to a body where you have started weaning off some of these things might actually be a shock to your system and difficult to eat, So
Yeah.
kind of curious, how that kind of resonates with you.
There's a couple of things in there. It's interesting what your relationship with food is growing up, because while my family were also immigrants, we generally ate at home a lot. Like we never ate out at restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of cooking. My mom cooked food every single day. And even at her older age of like 80, she still expects food to be cooked every day, either by her or by my sisters who take care of her.
Yeah.
And with that, there's that mentality of like, you should not waste your food. It's expensive. I was always told like, you're lucky to have the food on your plate because there are, millions of kids in other countries and continents that just don't have anything.
Yeah,
And you
absolutely.
just cannot throw away your food. But for what drastically changed for us, my family as a whole, was literally like, everyone is a diabetic now in my family. We cannot eat the same way anymore.
Yeah.
And that has changed what foods we eat, how we eat them, whether or not it's okay to throw food away is a contentious issue for many people, but it becomes a situation where like I can't eat a lot of food because it destroys my blood sugar. It goes sky high, and then I have all kinds of other impacts from it and the long-term impacts from that. And so I have to start really, to your point, really starting to learn how to cook, learn how to make food that one is delicious, because I expect delicious food. I don't know about a lot of people, but I want to eat stuff that tastes good, right?
Yeah.
But it has to be healthy. I grew up for a while, I was eating a lot of bad food. I think there's our famous coveted egg foo young summer, where I ate egg foo young every day. That was awful for me. This high in sodium, high in cholesterol and trans fats, everything. I shouldn't have been doing that. But obviously you're in college, you're a kid, you don't know a lot. And as you get older, you realize like, man, I can't eat that kind of stuff. It's, you're starting to get
up to you.
Blood tests. You're seeing the huge impacts. And even recently, like, my kids wanted Happy Meals last week, and I was like, okay, let's, we don't really eat at McDonald's often. They can get a Happy Meal. They barely ate it. And I got like a chicken sandwich, and I just felt so bloated afterwards.
Yeah.
Like I looked at my wife. I was like, you need to like roll me to bed. It was awful.
That's the fascinating thing. I think we're finally hitting that point because like you said, when I grew up, we did do a lot of home cooking, but as much as I love my mom, her cooking wasn't the best. Growing up, I never really understood what steak tasted like because it was always hard as a rock. It was dried out and just either burnt, just not great. It's super well done. Same thing with pork chops. Same thing with many different things. I just didn't understand what it tasted like because, my mom was not, classically trained. There was no, YouTube back then. Sure, you had some recipe books, but, she didn't necessarily use a thermometer. So the safe way to cook was to just burn it and dry it out. And yeah, it wasn't until I remember going to a wedding, I think when I was older, and I'd had a filet mignon. I was like, what is this? This is not what steak tastes like. This is so strange. But
just to your point, I never ate red meat. Or sorry, not red meat, but like medium below well done.
Yep.
Until probably college.
Adults. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Same thing.
Just a different experience.
Also, my mom generally didn't like raw food, so sushi we rarely got. There's a lot of different things that you start to explore and you start to, love tasting these types of things. I know growing up, my mom wasn't a big fan of curry, and there's a tremendous variety of curries, right? You go from Japanese to Indian to all these different places, Thai curries. And I realized, wow, these are actually pretty tasty. You start to get a taste and feel of these different spice profiles, and you realize how much you're missing out on. But there's also a lot of people that we know and that we love and hold dear to our hearts that just don't necessarily want to experiment and try. And that's okay also. I mean, depending on what you grow up with and what you're interested in. But
I mean,
I definitely consumed a good amount of fast food growing
uh,
up.
to your point, our country of the United States was created because they were trying to find spices in India.
That is
They
true.
just stumbled upon the Americas, right? So
Yes, exactly.
spices started
Yeah.
wars for sure.
Yes. Yeah, but where we grew up, there was a wide variety. The usuals I grew up with, there was McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, Taco Bell, and we kind of just rotated. It was convenient, it was relatively cheap, and my metabolism was still good back then. And you almost feel indestructible. And eventually it catches up. Even into my 30s, didn't really appreciate it, didn't understand it. I see my slightly older coworkers eating salads, eating, grilled meats and things. Why would I want to do that? And then it really kicked in. So we worked closely with our trainer. We started getting into learning about nutrition and meal prep, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And it was fascinating. I think we all get hit with, like you said, these medical ailments. So I got diagnosed with high blood pressure, and our trainer said, okay, well, let's test and really see if this is purely from food or if this is genetic or you have some other issues. And she challenged me for 1 to 2 weeks to cook everything plain, grill, little oil, no salt. And lo and behold, my blood pressure did go down quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And what that meant is that I needed to stop eating processed foods and all this extra stuff. And it's difficult. But when we did do it, it got to a point where, like you said, and I still struggle 100%. I still go back all the time. But it got to a point where we went out and it was, kind of a festival. There was carnival foods and things that I would just love to eat. Everything is fried, right? Not necessarily state fair, but we've been to those too. And
Yeah.
everything is fried. Fried Oreos, fried ice cream, fried this and that, corn dogs, delicious. But when we started weaning off some of these very oily and fried foods and we tried to eat it, we almost physically got ill. Maybe from the quality of the food, but just your body is no longer used to it and you kind of don't really crave it. Now, with that said, have I been eating it? I do, but we still eat it. We try to eat it in moderation. It's something that we generally don't do at home. We don't deep fry. When we go out, we certainly still get it some, but some of the foods that we've been generally cutting out is fast food, like you said. A lot of the ultra processed stuff, especially fried chicken, we used to eat it a ton. Definitely not healthy for me.
For the listeners, one of Twiggles' favorite foods was chocolate milkshakes.
Oh, this guy
and
loves to joke.
When we went to college together, I had a craving for Burger King milkshakes, and I would get it often. And I had Twiggles get one as well. And
I was extremely dehydrated, and I should have drank more water, and I didn't. and the story was that we got milkshakes, and because of the sugar and the high fat content, while trying to drink it and while being dehydrated, it felt like it was just glass cutting my throat. And sorry for the visceral imagery, but that's how I felt. And to be honest, that actually influenced my life after that. I very rarely get milkshakes because just thinking about it triggers me, and I just almost don't want it anymore, which is potentially a good thing. Not to say I have to traumatize myself every single time to get myself to stop eating this stuff.
You have to internalize the pain, and the feeling of the bloatiness and all the other stuff you get with fast food. It'll make you not want to crave it. And then also, like, to your point about like craving fast food, a lot of new research is, you'll probably hear about it all the time now. It's like, your gut bacteria, eating fast food influences certain bacteria. Eating healthier foods like fiber and prebiotic stuff will impact your gut bacteria in a positive way. And fermented food is also an important thing to eat. And they're finding that, like, not only does the gut bacteria influence the food you eat and the health, but also has an impact on diseases. And, my mom has been like officially diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and they're finding that specific bacteria produce certain kinds of chemicals which can increase your chance to have Alzheimer's. And
Mm,
if on the flip side, if you're eating healthier food, you're eating a lot of fiber, a lot of vegetables, you're eating fermented foods and things like that, it causes your gut bacteria to produce more healthful chemicals, which has a more protective effect on you. And that also really changes how you crave food. And for me, with my triathlon training, I have been, making a conscious effort to eat a lot of healthier food, grilling chicken, grilling vegetables, a lot of grilling because it's, we'll get to it, but it's a lot easier to grill a lot of food at once, right? And
yeah.
you can meal prep. But what I found is like, I feel like I have more energy. I feel tired in the evening. I can sleep better. I think we've talked about that we track, I don't know if we talked about, but we track our sleep scores. And, my average sleep score has been going up. The baseline has gone up, which I feel better. I feel more energized in the morning and get out
Mm,
of bed. And when I eat fast food, my God, I feel terrible, not just for that day, but it has an impact the next day. And
absolutely.
being able to recover, it takes like a whole weekend to recover. Like if you drink alcohol, it's not just the next day, but
Or even sleep too. Yeah,
a
it's that jet lag
whole amount.
can take you multiple days to recover, even from one poor night or one bad day of eating. So totally, there was an episode or a video that I saw. It was I believe, either a British doctor or a scientist, and there are a bunch of videos and things where, a documentary called Super Size Me, where a guy decided to eat only McDonald's every single day for 30 days, and just the impact of him, and how it changed some of his baseline well-being stats. And there was a British guy who did it as well, and he ate only ultra-processed foods for 30 days. And the first few days, he's like, this is incredible, and you got to remember that these companies are investing tons of money to make their food hyper palatable, so much so that you just need to have it. And that's the crazy thing. So what was interesting about this guy who did this experiment was his brain chemicals. Like you said, you talk about, dopamine cravings and all these things, was almost permanently, changed and morphed, where it hits different now. Before, he ate, healthy, and he ate clean and didn't really partake in a lot of these things. But now that his body was aware that these things exist, there's a lot of, kind of um demonizing of MSG and other types of seasonings and things, but a lot of them, they can be quite processed, and they can literally change the way that your brain thinks. And I think that's important also, is that a lot of times it's not always about willpower. There are some people that say, hey, why don't you just not eat it? Ironically, I know we kind of talked about this. I struggle with food. That is something I genuinely enjoy and think about all the time. On a regular basis, I am probably anticipating and thinking about my next 2 or 3 meals, even a day in advance. And it's difficult because, for me especially, with all the stress that I'm going through, I know you're dealing with a lot of things as well. You just naturally turn to, often, high fat, high carbs, sugary things, oily things, because it just feels comforting. But then, to your point, once you eat it, you don't always feel great. And
Oh,
often, yeah. So some of those tips, to really get after it and think about it, is to have healthy options. When you open that fridge, what is the first thing you see? When you open your pantry, if you have snacks and all these things, this will be another topic we talk about later. They often also talk about when you go grocery shopping. When you go grocery shopping, don't go hungry. I try to eat something healthy, make sure you're full. Otherwise, you go, that snack aisle is looking mighty fine. And you just grab, one box will do. That'll be fine. Maybe 2 boxes.
the counter to that, not a counter, but the corollary to don't go grocery shopping hungry is also to, one, plan a list out, and
Hmm.
two, try to only buy things that are on the outside of the
Hmm.
grocery store, not physically outside, but the end
Around the
aisles,
outer
the
perimeter, correct?
produce, the
Yep.
dairy, all the meats. They're all on the outsides, and all the
Yeah.
stuff on the inside that's
The
not
the
refrigerated.
things that are perishable, exactly.
Yes, you skip
If it's
those if you
non-perishable, you really got to question why.
yeah.
You know, and we talked about this, even just the fascination around bread. I know as a diabetic, you know, you have to be more careful, but you know, I think I've probably talked about it. Most people that know me, I love bagels. I love, you know, carbs and breads and everything. They're all so tasty. But a lot of the modern types of breads, you really start to wonder, man, why can this sit out on the shelf for so long? And
Yep.
then you realize how much stuff they've loaded with it. And then if you go and get fresh, natural breads, they go spoil like super quick
Within days.
within days. I remember getting something and I bought buns for a barbecue. And then when it was humid, within a few days, it was already mold growing. And, you
Uh,
know, it's crazy.
when growing up, or not even growing up, but like pre-kids, we would buy Pepperidge Farm,
Yeah.
like Hardy White.
Yep.
I love eating it with peanut butter
Wonder
and jelly, but
Bread, all the
my
good
God,
ones.
my wife bought a Zojirushi bread maker that just does the whole thing all in one. Eating
Which
that
is on
bread,
my list that I want.
it's first of all, it's amazing. It's definitely worth it because like today in this day and age, you know, you have your breads in the middle aisles that are like $3 to $5, and then like the nice bread is $10. You don't need to buy the nice bread for $10. You just go and buy the bread maker, and you can make those $10 breads. You'll get your value back very
And
quickly.
it's generally
And they're
just, you
so
know,
much better.
it's basically just flour, some water, some yeast, or your starter,
Exactly.
and that's really it. So, I mean, I agree.
And to your point, like the Pepperidge Farm Hardy White, I had it recently, like a couple of years later, and it just felt like I was eating this gummy, like half gummy, half pasty, like white bread. And I was just like, I can never eat this again. This is just terrible for you. And that's supposed to be like a healthier-ish bread, right?
Yeah.
It's just amazing how dangerous a lot of these like processed foods are. I think it's like the most dangerous and perfectly created food in a lab is like Doritos, right? Because it's like
it just
all
hits real
processed
hard.
powder. The chip itself is fried. Then the effect of the powder on your fingers, for you lick them, and it creates this like hormone slash memory effect on you, so that you want to do it again and you want to eat more. And it's like one of the most dangerous foods you can possibly eat. That being said, I love Cool Ranch, but
As you say that, I just bought a giant bag for a party we went to from Costco, and that's what happened. The kids were like, "This is delicious."
Oh
So,
man, Cool Ranch
yes,
is a vice for me.
to your point, we tried to refrain. It was just for the party. So, but yeah, so going back, I think one of the things I wanted to we kind of started with was just the idea of meal prep, and the idea of, to your point, coming up with some of the useful tools that we've kind of learned to use over time. Maybe some things we don't use as much, but you know, you talked about the bread maker, some of the other things that I've found. Some of my favorites, probably the two more recent ones that I use pretty frequently, is my Instant Pot, or you know, pressure cooker. I really didn't discover this until, you know, years ago, when I hit my 30s or so, but it's been fantastic. So long as you can sort of, you know, eat kind of the same things, or also, you know, make it in a batch small enough where you don't have to eat so many leftovers. It really depends. I fortunately don't really mind eating leftovers, and there's so many fascinating, interesting tips with it. Also, some other things that I found useful was an air fryer. Obviously used to use the oven, ever since I learned a little bit about also using natural gas and gas in the house for your stoves. It's generally not great. You always got to make sure you keep the vents open, because there have been led to issues with asthma and other breathing issues for kids. So we've been generally trying to move more towards electric and induction burners. So with that said, we've switched to an electric tea kettle, sort of boiling water. Also, we have an induction, like one single burner stovetop to cook things, and we use an air fryer, and toaster oven, a bunch of other things. So those are just some of the things that I have found. I'll kind of go into it a little bit more, but what have you found that's been useful for yourself?
So everything you said,
Yeah.
Personally, like we know when we moved into our home, they had an electric stove. If you have never experienced induction cooking, you should, because electric stoves are so bad. I mean, they serve their purpose, but my God, going from you can get on Amazon like a cheap induction cooktop. I think it's
Yep.
like Duck's Top brand,
Yep.
DUX.
That's the one I
That's
got.
what I bought. It was like $50 when I bought it years ago. And my God, food, it evenly heats your pan. Your food cooks amazing and everything cooks super fast. Your water boils fast. If you're making pasta or whatever, like it's just the cooking time decreases, which is a mental load, a stress decrease. Now, in terms of like useful tools, I have, I've done all the things that you have, but I have spent a little bit more on some more exotic items. I get made fun of a lot for some of them, but I have found that they can be incredibly helpful, especially with like ADHD, having trouble planning, right?
Mm,
So one of the things that I bought was a vacuum sealer.
mm,
And what I've been doing lately is I will marinate chicken, chicken thighs or chicken breasts, and I'll just throw a marinade on it, and I will just vacuum seal the bags. I'll weigh them out so
mm.
they're like 1.5 pounds each, and I vacuum seal them. It takes me like
With the
20
marinade?
minutes with the marinade in it.
Yep.
I seal it, and then I write the date and I write like what it is, and then I
Mm,
throw it in the freezer. So
yeah.
I have like a couple of different frozen bags of marinated meat. And because it's vacuum sealed, it shoves all the marinade into the meat. And so you get a really good flavor on it. And what I do is I will buy like 10 pounds of meat, marinate all of it. We'll do like, recently I did like Jamaican jerk and my wife did, Bachan's, Japanese, marinade, tastes like teriyaki chicken that you get at
Mm-hmm.
like, Panda Express. And I broke it all down and just froze them all, and then on Saturdays we pop out a couple of bags, let them defrost. Sunday I grill all of it, and now both of us have food for the week. So vacuum sealer was a big one. Sous vide is another one, which is it's a niche item. However, I found that it can be helpful, especially if you work. If you don't work from home, it's really helpful. It's similar to like slow cooking, but it's a lot more forgiving, and if you have a vacuum sealer, you can seal up like a steak. You can seal up mashed potatoes that haven't been cooked, or like carrots with like some sort of glaze, like a honey glaze on it.
So
And
just for those that might not be into the chefy stuff, do you want to just kind of briefly explain the
yes,
vacuum sealing
yes.
and the sous vide?
So the vacuum sealer sucks all the air out of the bag. And so the reason why it's so important is because when you take your food and you freeze it, it can absorb the smells in your freezer. And then when you take it out and you thaw it and cook it, it doesn't taste the same. Vacuum sealing helps to prevent that. It also helps to prevent, what is it?
Freezer burn.
Freezer burn, yeah,
Yeah, because
which
there's too
can
much
change the
oxygen.
taste.
Yeah.
Exactly. And sous vide is cooking your food in a water bath. So if you vacuum seal all your food, it's waterproof. And then you just take them and throw them in a water bath that's at a certain temperature. It will cook it over time, and all of your food will be done. You can take all the bags out, cut open the bags, and your food is cooked. So one of the dishes I like to make is honey roasted carrots. You take baby carrots and cook them in like some honey dish with like salt, pepper, and some spices. And what you do is you put it all in a vacuum seal bag. You cook it in the sous vide, and then you take it out and throw it in a pan to just kind of caramelize it. And then shrimp. I take shrimp, do the same thing, and then throw it in a pan, and it's like an Old Bay smoked paprika seasoning with butter. And you can eat it with rice or like risotto or whatever. You can make risotto in a bag, essentially. The idea is you create a menu, you prep all the hard stuff, which is like marinating the meats or just portion sizes. And then when it comes time to start meal prepping, all it really is just taking a bag out and cooking it. So you've taken away half the effort for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, you're taking advantage of doing it a little bit in bulk. Exactly.
Yes,
And then when you need it, because oftentimes, to your point, when you're hungry, you don't got time to wait, especially with kids. Especially with kids.
We don't even cook during the week anymore. We were cooking sometimes, and it became too much. And now it's the only drawback is we do microwave a lot of food, which there can be
some
people who are
and things,
for or against it, but it's really just cooking. The idea was we want to cook meal prep food that tastes delicious after you reheat it.
Yeah.
And that's the way to get it done.
I think the real MVP is where we're pointing to is actually our chest freezer. So I know both of us ended up buying one through COVID. We realized, oh boy, what are we going to do? Everything was selling out. For those that remember, it was a tough time. People were buying things in bulk and in mass, and things were just running out. So we were a little bit paranoid. To that point, we did start meal prepping more. I think both of us, we both bought a chest freezer. So, but I do also have friends and family that I know either live in, apartment complexes, just don't have the luxury of space. So this is obviously, something that you do need a little bit of space for, because if you are trying to meal prep and do the freezer stuff, we'll go into, again, a few of the other things. But one of the benefits that I found was I don't have a sous vide. But similarly, if I freeze things, and I also don't have the vacuum sealer, but I can also generally marinate. Or what I do is I'll take some of the, I might not do the marinade. I'll do that later. And what I'll end up doing is I buy a lot of the meats in bulk. And what I found with the Instant Pot, so the way that the Instant Pot works is, for those that aren't familiar, is it's a pressure cooker. So oftentimes, some people are used to the slow cooker, where they kind of just leave it there. It's no different than just putting it on the stove and just putting it on a low flame and letting it cook. Over time, a lot of times the meats will start to break down, will become looser and softer. You end up with like pulled pork, pulled chicken, all these different types of stews. But the thing about the pressure cooker is that when it cooks, and it always scared me, right? Who wants to cook with pressure? What happens if it blows up? How do you know that it's safe? And the Instant Pot, I personally have, it is a brand. It's a digital instant, pressure cooker, but there's a lot of safety mechanisms. I've been, very trusting of it. Could something go wrong? Certainly, if you happen to not follow the directions correctly, or not, take care of it and drop it or something. But the most fascinating, which I started to experiment, was that you could take completely raw chicken and just take it, like not warmed up, nothing, not room temperature, not defrosted. And I throw it right into the pot with a bunch of the different mixtures of spices and things. And I just go right to cook. And it could be 30 minutes, 45 minutes. And normally, if you were to slow cook it to get some of those really tender, pull apart chicken and things, could take hours. But this does it in about 30, 45 minutes. And before I know it, I have, super soft pulled pork, pulled chicken. I can just poke it right through and it just falls apart. But the best thing was I didn't have to defrost it. There's a lot of times where, yes, if you buy meats, you realize I can't leave it out too long. My wife used to criticize me because I was like, I'll just cook it tomorrow. Then you get busy with work. Something happens to the kid. Someone doesn't feel good. And suddenly my meat went bad. And I can't even eat it, and I have to throw it out. We talked about waste and the finances of it. So having it in the freezer, I found, was super useful for me.
Mhm.
I could still, like you said, go the defrost route and still, air fry it, throw it in the oven, or even just kind of microwave defrost it. But the Instant Pot has been really an MVP for us, because I could do it in big batch. We actually have two Instant Pots. We have a small one for my wife and a big one for me, and we do all sorts of stuff in there. But yeah.
To your point with Instant Pot, like growing up, my family used pressure cookers a lot, and we had the old school,
Yeah, the old
heavy
school.
duty metal ones.
Yeah.
You have to like turn it and put the
Yep.
little thing on it so it
Yeah, the
whistles. And
valve.
my God,
Yep.
the valve, when you press it, there would be this blast of steam everywhere. It
Yeah.
terrified me as a kid. It was scary, but man, it does make cooking super fast. My family would cook everything in it: rice, meats, stews, whatever you could think of. We had like 4 or 5 of them. And we'd always have to go to like rare stores to find them, like basically like, Asian food market stores, because you're not going to find those in like a Macy's or those kind of stores.
But I think you did bring up a good point, especially with the kids. Trying to find, we'll kind of rotate into the idea of sort of snacks. But the reality of my life is that I get hungry. I want to eat stuff and I want to eat tasty things. But often, what do I choose to eat? If I have a choice, I will often gravitate towards that just quick snack. And I realized that I started to gain some pounds because, we buy some cookies here and there. Oh, there's some snacks, there's some chips, there's some donuts, whatever. And we just leave it out on the living room table. Something I know we've talked about is sometimes when you have a vice or something that you really don't want to encourage, put a little bit of friction, make it a little bit more difficult. Do I do this? I don't. Sort of. So like, where do we put the ice cream? We don't leave the ice cream in our main living room or in our main kitchen and freezer, right? We put it in the basement. I've even joked and have tried to do this sometimes where, oh, you want snacks? Go leave it in the garage. Rainy day, are you really still going to get those chips? Probably not.
Nope.
And look at that. It happens to be near my pull-up bar, and maybe you might as well just do a few pull-ups while you're at it. Try and add a little bit of friction because look, I'm guilty of it. I will eat a snack and I will leave it on my desk. And guess what? You start, working on a call, you start to stress out a little bit, things are getting busy, and oh, look, I'll just take one chip, two chips, and the bag of chips is gone. And it's just a struggle that I have. So I think having healthy snacks around, and maybe, I'm kind of curious if you have any I know you've actually turned me on to something recently, but what kind of things do you do to, combat this or especially with your diabetes? Is there anything that you particularly like or gravitate towards, or do you have the similar kind of issues as me?
I definitely have a sweet tooth for certain kinds of dessert, like cookies or like Snickers bars, those kinds of things. But I've realized not buying, first of all, I don't buy them anymore in the stores. Like on the rare occasion I want cookies, I might buy a small bag of like Tate's cookies, right? Because they're small.
Yeah.
You don't get that many, right? Versus like if you go to Costco and you get like a 20 pack of Oreo sleeves, which
that's the dangerous place where I go.
You know what?
I've been going more lately.
I'm gonna be totally honest. We do have the 20 pack of Oreos from Costco. It's sitting, but to your point, it's sitting in the garage because the kids wanted it, and they've totally forgotten about it, and so did I. And now that literally, I just remembered that we have it, so I might actually just take them and donate it to like the food pantry or something. But
yeah, or the kids don't need to know that it's a 20 pack.
Exactly. Yeah,
just leave one, and then when you finish it, then bring it out again, and otherwise, because we have a giant thing of Ritz crackers, and the kids are like, "Oh, I'm just going to eat this all day." Then you realize it's, as much as I love Ritz crackers, it's so buttery. It's just not great for you.
Yeah. So what we ended up doing and what we ended up realizing is like we shouldn't buy them. Like we should, if we want ice cream, we'll go to the local ice cream like parlor and get a cone for all of us and eat it, have fun, sit there. And the benefit for us is like, yes, it's a little more, but we don't do it often. It turns into an event. You have them now, a memory that you can have with your family, and it's fun. And then you can, you meet, go meet up with a friend you haven't talked to in a while that have kids or whatever, and make it a social event, and it's fun. And so that's one way of combating it. The other is healthy snacks, right? Like it's really interesting where when I stopped eating processed foods as much as I could and started eating fresh fruits and vegetables, how different they start to taste. And then when you go back and eat processed foods, you're like, my God, this is so sweet. I can't eat it. One of my favorite things to do is I snack on like mixed nuts, peanuts, almonds, cashews, that kind of stuff. That's literally like I actually on my desk right now, I have a giant thing of trail mix, and I will snack on it in meetings. And yes, it's calories, but at least I'm not going to feel guilty about the fact that it's trail mix. It's relatively healthy. They're not like heavily salted or anything. And the other thing is that, fresh fruits is so underrated as a dessert option. I try to get a lot of different fruits because I've just been craving them lately with the training. I eat, apples, bananas, pears, oranges, grapes, carrots. Oh, carrots not a fruit, but I like to eat carrots and grapes together. Because secretly it's like
combination.
It's really weird, but it tastes very refreshing because the carrots are refreshing and the grapes are, and it sort of works for me. And I don't feel guilty about the fact that it's just grapes. It's like well, you're getting a vegetable in. So helping your future self by buying healthy stuff and putting it out, and then also even if you get stuff like trail mix or whatever, portion it. So I have my container here, but it's not a giant container from Costco. It's a little bit, and the giant bag of trail mix from Costco is, hidden away in the.
That's my downfall. As you showed me, I know the listeners can't see it, and hopefully maybe next season we'll bring in our video. But I tend to hit the supersize nuts. I love eating cashews, and I will just leave it on my desk. And to your point, that's my detriment. I shouldn't do that. I need to put it somewhere else, portion out into little smaller chunks, because otherwise it's hard, especially if I'm on calls, nibble, 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 nibble. And then all of a sudden you realize, wow, this 1 pound thing of cashews is all gone. you know? That's
Cashews are delicious though.
they're so good, and I wondered, why am I gaining weight? And then I wasn't tracking my calories, and it's very easy to consume a lot. So I think portion
Yeah.
control is very important. Definitely where I think I was lacking in. But also,
But it
so yeah,
I
go ahead.
I will say though, when you start changing what you eat and you start eating healthier food, you start getting hungrier
Mm.
and you eat more of it, but you won't gain as much weight because it's not as dense as ultra processed food, right? And you're getting a lot of fiber
Or even
that
even I would say not dense. The problem with a lot of the ultra processed foods is the fact that they feel like empty calories. They're meant
that
to
too.
essentially get you to keep eating more, yet not satiate you. I remember going to, I won't mention the name of a fast food place, and we got really upset because we spent $50, $60 on the family. We ate, we finished eating. We used to love it. And we used to eat it whenever we could. It was not something that was nearby, so whenever we'd go, we'd get it. And after we finished a meal, we realized I'm still hungry. I don't understand. It almost felt like we were eating something, yet it felt like we did not eat much at all. It was almost like eating air. Yet we knew it was lots of salt, lots of oil, lots of fat, and calories. By no means did we underconsume the calories, but it just didn't hit the same, you know?
Yeah, it's with the amount of fiber you get with healthier food, it fills you up, but
Yeah.
you feel better after eating it because you might feel full for a bit, but because of the fact that it's healthier, it goes down your system easier, better. Your body feels better. You don't feel a bloat after
Yeah.
eating a large meal.
Yeah.
And I could still remember when I was younger. My family, very rarely when we did eat out, I don't know why, but we would get KFC, like a giant family
Mm.
bucket with like 10
Yeah, we
sides.
loved it. We used to do
Oh
it
my
too.
God. I love KFC.
And then I would food
I
coma
get
right after, and I never
food,
understood it.
we would just roll into the living room
Yep.
and we would all sit there and then watch TV and just sip on in the summer, sip on like an ice cold
Mm,
soda.
of course.
Oh man. Because we didn't have AC. So that's how you keep cool, right?
Yeah.
But fun memories, but, now that I think about it, it's just not good for you.
Yeah.
It's so
And,
bad
and
for
I
you.
think I will kind of rotate a little bit also into different kinds of diets and things. I know for me in particular, weight has always been an issue.
Yep.
I know that my weight is not great. It's frankly right now sort of at an all-time high. And I'm kind of going back to the idea, something that actually worked for me. And again, we're not medical experts. Obviously, please use this, at your own advice. You'll have to, work with your doctors and things. But something that I found was useful for me was intermittent fasting. There have been, some different kinds of, you probably know more of the science of it. But where I struggle is overeating, essentially. When I eat, I tend to eat on a schedule. It's breakfast time, no matter what, whether I'm hungry or not. 3 hours later, it's lunchtime. And what helped me was reducing some of those meals. Now, as we worked with our trainer, there was a strong recommendation that if I was strength training, that I have to be careful with my protein intake, which we'll talk about a little bit later, and the timing window and all these other things, and could sometimes be counterproductive to either strength training and gains. But what I found was that I genuinely was almost afraid of being hungry.
Mhm.
And it's just this, it could be a mental block on my side. And I realized this. But when I was intermittent fasting, I was almost no longer afraid. I suddenly felt hungry, but often that hunger would go away. And it almost turned it into a game. So there was a few different apps that I used back then. I don't remember the names of them, but I'm sure there's many else more now. But I tended to go on to a 16-8 fasting diet. So I would fast for 16 hours and I would eat for only 8 hours. And essentially that window for me was typically 12 noon to about 8 p.m. And, if I had to go to work, I would come back. Unfortunately, I have a long commute. And when I get home, we would eat dinner, maybe work out a little bit, get a protein snack in, and then be done for the day. And I do love breakfast. I have gone back to, consuming more protein, which again, we'll talk about a little bit later. But what I notice is, again, I tend to eat on a clock. And then on top of that, I'll fill it in with anytime I feel remotely hungry, I have this fear that I'm just going to, wither away. When in reality, obviously, I'm already way overweight. So there's no risk of anything. But
That's that feeling is actually really important because so with intermittent fasting, when you fast for a longer period of time, the idea is that it triggers certain processes in your body to
Mm,
help kind of sort of clean out your body. It
yeah,
triggers like, cell, I forgot the name of the scientific term, but it's like cell death to,
yeah.
get rid of the bad cells. Your body will recreate the new ones that are fresh. There's a lot of benefits to intermittent
Autophagy.
fasting.
I wanted to
Autophagy,
double check it,
yes.
but I was pretty sure that was it. So yes,
Yeah. And so with intermittent fasting, the idea of being hungry is okay. And a lot of people don't understand it. They're like, I just need to not feel hungry. I don't like this feeling. It's
I don't
okay
like that
to be
feeling. That's
hungry.
it.
It
Uh,
it kinda it when you start eating healthier food, you kinda realize that being hungry is almost a good thing
yeah.
because you start to understand the signals that your body is giving you. It's easier to understand, "Wait a minute, am I hungry? Do I just need water?" For a long time, I couldn't tell the difference because I would just fill up by eating, crappy food instead of drinking water. And now that I eat a little bit healthier, I can tell that, oh, wait a minute, I need to actually eat something versus, well, I'm just thirsty and my body just wants to fill up.
Yeah, another key thing that I don't do in practice enough, and I realize this is what leads to my not being satisfied with my food, and it's about the pace of eating. We often try to encourage our kids, again, into the parenting side of things, to eat a little bit faster because they tend to dilly dally and they don't seem to eat a lot. I think both of our kids are quite hyper. They like to run around a lot. One of my kids does not sit still at the table. He is the younger one, but there was one experience that I had where it was a lunch at work. It was the longest and slowest lunch I've ever been at. And all of us were frantically like, we don't have this much time to eat for lunch. But, we're like, hey, the whole team's here. Let's enjoy the time. Let's just, eat as it comes out. And the other odd thing about it was, so it was a Mediterranean restaurant. It was delicious, super fresh. The bread was fantastic. It must have been freshly baked. Great ingredients, artisan breads, all kinds of dips, so like hummus and olive oils. And then it went to salad courses, and then it went into warm and hot cooked vegetables. And we're like, "Where's the meat?" And we ate, and this took, I think, probably an hour and a half. We were shocked, but here was the thing. We were eating slowly, eating healthy, fresh vegetables, super fresh, all very tasty too, not super salty, not super oily or healthier oils. And by the time we got to the meat course, we realized we were full
Hmm.
and we were very satiate. Everything was delicious. We didn't really miss it. I mean, we did eat a little bit because we didn't want to waste it, but everything just tasted so good. And the problem is when we're at home, we're always in such a rush that it's almost like a game. How fast can we as the adults eat? Because we got to go then prep and do everything else when we should be taking a lesson from our kids, not necessarily running around during, dinner time, but to slow things
Slow
down.
down.
And
Yeah.
we'll often ask them, it's like, are you hungry? And of course, like you said, they haven't quite trained that skill yet. No, I'm not hungry. 5 minutes later, can I have a snack?
Yes. I literally went through that like an hour ago because I put my son to bed and then he came out and he's like, I need to go to the bathroom. So then I took him to the bathroom. And then he's like, I'm hungry. And I gave him a banana. Then I brushed his teeth again. Then I put him back to bed.
Yeah.
It's interesting you mentioned like the pace of food and slowing down. What growing up, because I grew up in a religious household, we were actually told that when you eat your food, you should chew it 32 times. So in
Mm.
Islam, like if you do things that they tell you to, they're kind of like good deeds, and it's like they count them.
And there's
And
there's
so
likely, sort of science and good reasons for a lot of these things.
right. And so the idea is like if you chew each bite 32 times, the saliva will break it all down. It slows down. And when you
Mm,
when you when you activate the saliva production, your body will slowly start to fill up and then you don't eat as much. And
mm,
this is kind of going into like how GLP-1s sort of work. They tell your body like, hey, you're eating, you should now start to slow down. When you don't have that signal, you tend to overeat.
mm.
And so slowing down while you eat and making an intention to chew as you're eating it causes your body to change. And to your point, like, in this day and age, we sit down, we're always constantly like,
Go,
eat
go,
your food,
go.
eat your food,
Yeah.
eat your food. And as you said, like, we have two super hyperactive boys. They do not sit at the table at all. And just getting them to, there are points where I'm running after them with a fork and food on it. And each bite will take like 5 minutes. So dinner usually becomes like an hour plus affair,
Mm,
right? Being able to slow down, it's okay to not eat all the food on your plate. Go ahead and pack it away for tomorrow. And we realized that that's something we could totally do with the kids. They eat maybe half of their dinner. Sure,
mm.
just pack it away and they can eat it tomorrow. It's not like it's going to go bad.
And I
And
know.
we didn't have to eat their food because it would go bad. And it helps us mentally, like we're not wasting food anymore either.
Mm,
But there's so many different aspects to how you eat food, and when you eat it, what you're eating has an impact. And to your point about the Mediterranean restaurant, when I had a recent like family outing, I grilled like Jamaican jerk chicken. I made like fresh asparagus, potatoes. The food was delicious. And after eating it, we kind of still felt hungry. And, we had room for dessert and tea and that kind of stuff. But then another couple of days later, we had, like burgers and hot dogs and like
mm.
macaroni salad and chips. And you just feel
Heavier.
it feels so much heavier. You can feel like the food sitting up near your chest area almost. And you start getting like gassy and like, it causes all kinds of like reactions in your body. You feel bloated. And then you just like, roll me around. I can't do anymore. And then
Mm.
and then literally like your body's like, no, but what about dessert? What about second breakfast? Like the Hobbits, like what about second breakfast, right? Like it's dangerous. It's so
Yes,
dangerous.
I think I that is definitely another weakness of mine. So we're going into all the things that I'm self-aware of, and I'm working on. I'm trying to be better. I say that as I happen to see the leftover sandwich on my desk because my wife didn't finish. She's like, "Oh, you want to eat it?" I'm like, "No, I know I ate too much before, but of course I'm gonna still eat it." So the joke kind of is I'm basically the family food compactor, especially because the kids don't always want to eat their stuff. Well, I got a little left over. You're absolutely correct. The answer should be that we should just pack it away. And I know we've even had discussions where I vividly remember telling you, "Hey, we got this food. I do not like it." And he said, "Just throw it away." I can't. I just can't throw it away. And you're like, "Why not?" "I just can't waste it." He's like, "But you don't like it." I'm like, "I know." And you made me, and you said, "Just open the bag and dump it in the trash." And I did, and a little part of me just died inside, but I felt better because at least I wasn't consuming it and not eating it. It was
Yeah.
absolutely ultra processed. I absolutely did not even enjoy it. Like, genuinely, I didn't want to eat it. Yet every fiber of my body was like, don't waste this.
Yeah.
And it's a struggle. Every single day, the kids will often be like, well, I don't want to eat it. So I think you have a good point. We often do this. We'll take their foods, and it's hard because as the kids are growing, we don't generally know how much they should eat, especially with their metabolism. They, both. I think all of our kids they have a lot of energy, and they could put on some extra pounds, but we're also not super skinny, right? They're getting enough. They have muscle. They're able to, my kids are in martial arts. They're doing all sorts of different activities and things, and they're fine. But it's tough. It's tough to get them to eat, especially when there's all these tasty other things and chips and snacks. But
Oh
we
yeah.
force them to eat their vegetables, and they're generally pretty good. But they also love noodles and rice and all these other things.
So yeah, when my son went through like a birth to three program for like a behavioral,
Mm,
and one of the things that the nutritionist said to us, which really opened my eyes about parenting and food in general, was that don't look at what they eat on a day-to-day basis, look at what they eat on a multi-day to a weekly basis.
mm,
Because a lot of times your kids they're just not going to eat a meal. Like they'll just completely ignore an entire meal.
yeah.
And my youngest son will only eat one or two bites at dinner time now.
Mm,
He eats so much during the day. Breakfast, he has like a whole breakfast, then he has another breakfast at school, then he has lunch, and he has two snacks. That when he comes home, I was like, like yelling at him, chasing after him, like, you have to eat your
Your
dinner. We
dinner.
made this food, blah, blah, blah. He doesn't need it. He's getting enough calories. If he wants food, he'll tell us.
Yeah.
He's now at the point where he can say, like, I'm hungry or more, or, and he'll say, like, I want an orange. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
eat
So
your food. And then you know what? He doesn't eat it. I just pack his food up and give him to him tomorrow.
yeah,
And if he doesn't eat
our
it
kid
then I toss it
is the
because
opposite. Yeah, so my younger son tends to be quite a sleepyhead until it's the weekend, and then it's like, oh well, I should just get up and watch some TV and Saturday morning cartoons, you know. But we try to eat breakfast, and to be honest, as I think back, their breakfast choices are generally not the best. So me and my wife have rotated to have more, egg heavy or other vegetables, other types of proteins, different kinds of things. But I also grew up eating different kinds of bagels and things. And my sons don't, one of them likes the outside of the egg whites of a boiled egg. The other one sometimes likes scrambled eggs, sometimes it mixed with some cheese and things. But most of the time, when given a choice, he will just pick a bagel and chip off the old block. I love bagels too, but we always try and fill it in with some kind of a meat or some other proteins and things to eat with it, just to try and dilute it. But you're absolutely right. My younger son, I kept making him stuff and he would just go along with it, right? His bigger brother would be like, I want a bagel. And he would be like, I want a bagel too. So I make it for both of them. But then my younger son would take half a bite and then be off and running. So
hmm
now we asked, was like, you don't have to get something. If you really are not hungry, I don't want to waste the food, because then it ends up sitting, yeah, he'll nibble on it. When it comes to about lunchtime, he'll nibble on it some more. But we also want to try and keep it balanced. But they're also young. So, our trainers even said, well, we'll get into, again, talking about nutrition in a minute, but kids are also different. They're going to burn through the calories a lot faster, and the sugar, it's really not as bad for them. They're not necessarily, as an older adult, then you do want to be more careful with the balance. But you're absolutely right. We have to also realize that they need to really train. And I hate that too. It's something that me and my wife, we talk about, and it's difficult. Do you continue to push them to eat? For what reason? Do you have to finish your plate? Is this potentially a bad habit and something that's not conducive? And we're almost overriding and leading them into where I am, which is, I just got to finish it. I can't waste it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of these mental states that we don't realize that we're essentially conditioning. And, some of these things I don't necessarily agree with, but I haven't quite figured out the approach to do it. But, my wife will sometimes get upset. It's like, you need to finish your food. You need to be appreciative of the time we put in to make this and get for you. But they genuinely might not be hungry. But then you got to play that game. Okay, well, in half an hour, you're going to be hungry because then you should have ate. And now you're actually lying to yourself. But
So
kids are testing the boundaries.
yeah, teaching them to recognize hunger versus thirst is so important. And, to your point, how mental a lot of this is. I think there was research that, like, if you have blue plates, dark blue, like Facebook blue, that color has been shown to be more calming and relaxing. And so if your plate is that color and you put all your food on it, when you start eating, you're showing that plate. And as you go, your body tends to like relax and you don't want to eat as much.
Yeah, for sure. Portion control, there's a bigger plate sizes too. Yeah, absolutely.
There's a visual portion to eating. As they always say, like, food has to look good for it to also taste good.
Yeah.
And it makes such a difference for the mental aspect. And just like speaking about the mental aspect, like, when you get those cravings, there are ways to combat it by having a high protein snack, eat a cheese stick or a protein bar or, something that can help regulate your blood sugar. And that's not just a term for diabetics, but also for non-diabetics. If you eat food that has a stabilizing effect like fiber or protein or good healthy fats, it will reduce your cravings. It will allow you to function better and not have to be so impulse driven for specific foods.
Yeah. So we talk about it. So we'll rotate to just some of the nutrition of the macronutrients, right? So when I was younger, I didn't quite understand a lot of these things. Nowadays, it's maybe more and more the fad where they throw it up on all the boxes, right? Again, don't be tricked. Every company is wise to it. Everyone is going on a protein craze, but the reality is just because it says that it's a high protein snack or food doesn't mean it actually is. You really got to start to learn to compare some of the protein count and the number of grams for a serving size. You also want to compare it to the different types of other things that it's providing, especially the carbs and the sugars and fiber. But I think to your point, what we've learned is if you tend to eat more protein, it tends to be generally more filling. It will typically last longer. Whereas carbs and things, especially as we were training for, you're doing your triathlon. I've trained for some of my races, my running races, and what I've learned is that quick to digest carbs and things like that are great for the short term. You
Yep.
really need to build these up as long as you're going to burn them. So before a race, I was also asking AI and our trainer, what should I consume? What should I eat? Well, eat some protein here and there to obviously build up your body and your muscles, but make sure that you're getting some of these quick to digest, carbs, even those bagels and things like that. And also, I wanted to point out one of the snacks that you kind of got me onto was taking those large kind of round rice crackers and then just taking some peanut butter and putting on it. So the rice cracker is relatively, low calorie. The peanut butter just creates this vehicle to be able to eat it, and
Ugh,
it's delicious.
so good. It's one of
Yeah.
my favorites. Rice cakes with peanut butter. What is it? I forgot the brand with they make oatmeal. Quaker Oats. They
Yes.
make a apple cinnamon rice cake
Yeah.
with peanut butter is so good. It's so
Yeah.
delicious. I
There's,
could
there's
eat 2 or 3 and not feel guilty at all about it.
Yeah, there's a lot of great snacks. Another thing that I know we've messed around with. So I'm generally not really into the protein powders and mixes and things, but you could also make some of these kind of protein balls with some oatmeal. Chia seeds, a lot of natural things that you could use. Put a little bit of milk, and they were super tasty. Even my kids started eating it. We would throw it in the fridge for a little bit. Obviously, since it's all a lot of natural ingredients, you do want to try and consume it relatively quickly. But it wasn't that hard to make. Leading into also
Yep.
some other things, some of the meal prep ideas, overnight oats. I've been gravitating towards more yogurt. Technically, I know it is an ultra processed food, but in general, there's typically, especially Greek yogurts, there's generally more protein, keeps you satiated. You can maybe add a little bit of granola, add some nuts or add some fruit, just to jazz it up a little bit. But,
It's interesting because the term ultra processed, like, yes, flavored yogurt and like sugar-free yogurts, high protein yogurts, they are considered ultra processed foods.
yeah,
Greek yogurt is processed,
it is.
but it's minimally processed. If you can eat plain Greek yogurt or plain, I think it's like skyr, SKYR,
Yeah.
Icelandic yogurt, like they're a lot better for you than the flavored versions. That being said, if you can't stomach plain yogurt and you want to eat the flavored ones, go for it because they're still a lot better for you than eating, super heavy processed nonsense. Like I would say always pick the Greek yogurt over the protein bar.
Yeah.
Not all proteins are created equal either.
Yes.
Peanut butter, like protein in peanuts, is not the same as proteins in eggs. Like eggs are
Or
considered a
meats.
superfood.
Yeah.
Yeah, like eggs are like probably one of the healthiest things you can eat because it's like amazing protein, but you're also getting important fats like cholesterol. You get choline, which is a really, really important chemical for especially for people with ADHD. It helps to help produce dopamine. It helps to regulate your hormones and things like that. So, if you like eggs, eat a ton of boiled eggs because they're great for you.
Yeah, definitely the way that we've been going, and we won't get into all of it. But like you said, there is the complexities of, I think, a complete protein. Right, there's a lot of debate and talk about could you be completely vegan or vegetarian and still be able to do well. And I've actually watched a few of those videos and documentaries, and it's interesting. Right, there are some things that you might be deficient in, especially, and you do have to be careful. So we do encourage you if you want to try and go one way or another. But something that we have been trying to do is more actively eat more vegetables, try and reduce our general, meats and things. Now, we still eat it pretty much on a daily basis, almost every meal, to be honest. I mean, we just talked about, if the kids are just eating a bagel, we try and give them some kind of a meat. But with that said, there's also a lot of other types of plant proteins, so a lot of the things is, one of the go-tos for me with my chicken that I throw in the Instant Pot is I've been using more chickpeas. The different kinds of lentils, different kinds of barley, all sorts of things that really fill you up, that keep you satiated, is delicious, very easy to eat, something that I have been toying with that I probably wish I should eat less of is cheese, but man, it is so delicious.
I love cheese so much. It can be dangerous, but it is very good for you.
Yeah.
And then to your point about going, if you're going vegetarian or vegan and you haven't given it a try, look into, like Indian cuisine, because
Yeah.
India is a very large country with a lot of vegetarians
It's
and
fascinating to see the diversity of what you can
extremely
make.
flavorful. Yes, you can make so
Extremely.
many kinds of things. You can make, especially with how expensive things are, like
Yeah.
beans are and lentils are a staple there,
Yeah.
and they have some delicious food. So if you're
Yeah.
if you're interested in, saving money and you want to try vegetarian, go for it.
Yeah.
It's fantastic food.
Even the Mediterranean foods, a lot of the hummuses, a lot of the vegetable crudités. There's so many different types of cuisines that you could experiment and try with and realize, especially with fruits. So one of the unfortunate things is my family has been very fortunate. We do focus on, part of our rich life is traveling and vacation and just visiting other countries. And what you realize is that often the produce, the vegetables, and the fruits just hit different. There's a reason
Hmm.
why tomatoes come from Italy. There's a reason why these different types of fruits, mangoes I've heard
They
from,
they don't.
uh,
Tomatoes came from South America.
okay, sorry. So some of the ones okay, that I think of that I will often go to get, right, will be a lot of the Italian dishes and things. So thank you for correcting me. But there's other places for sure, right? That when you go and experiment and try these places, we'll come back home and we'll get some of the local, some of them are still good, but they just don't seem as tasty, you know?
That's like when we went to Japan and we tried all the fruits there. They have
Yeah,
very exotic, but they also have regular fruits that are just, the quality is so different and
yeah,
high quality, and it's wild to see. You can sometimes, depending on if you live in a major metro area, if you go to like Japanese markets,
yeah.
you might be able to find some of like the really nice quality fruits and stuff that they have
Yeah, I
there.
think you even mentioned, I remember you were talking about the milk just tasting completely different. I think they have super high quality milk
Six
there.
6% milk.
Yeah,
It just, like I can't get it out of my head. Eating Rice Krispies with that 6% milk, it just hits so different. It was so good. All of the folks that were on vacation with us will never forget that.
yeah.
We tried to. I think there was a recent thing about Costco selling 6% milk, and it sold out so quickly.
Uh.
And I was so sad because like our Costco didn't do that. But man, I would have bought like a couple of gallons of that milk for sure.
Awesome. All right, so we're gonna try and wrap it up. It's definitely, as you can see, we're passionate about this topic. There's so much to go into. Hopefully, we'll kind of bring this back with some of the things that maybe we didn't cover, or maybe if there's some feedback from others with tips. One of the things that we talk about is how do we get here. I do feel like we went a little roundabout. We tried to stay on topic, but there's just so much to talk about for food. So you have to spare us
You know, food
spare us
is
a little.
delicious.
It is delicious. I'm thinking about it again. I have this half a sandwich sitting on my desk, so I will have to go and eat this a little later. After that, we also have our typical rabbit hole. So I'm kind of curious, in the recent past, what has really grasped your attention and just wouldn't let go?
So lately, I love sports. I pretty much like all sports. My 4-year-old is old enough to play in rookie t-ball, which is
Mm.
baseball, and he plays once a week, and he thinks that that's enough. My wife thinks that my Asian tiger parenting comes out because was watching him play last week, and I'm like, man, if he would only use more than 10% effort, he would be so good at it. I love baseball. I want him to play, but I also don't want it to be like one of the things where he's I'm making him play. But
uh,
like I'll be like, hey, let's go play catch outside. He's like, nah, I don't want to. I want to ride my bike. And I'm like, so he'll be riding his bike, and I'll be sitting there outside throwing a ball up in the air and trying to catch it. But I've been watching videos on like, batting technique and like, baseball is actually a very complex sport with a lot of different rules, and just like reading up on them more and more, and I'm like, maybe I should coach him or try like be a volunteer rookie coach, because I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert or anything, but
yeah.
it would be kind of fun to try something different, and it's fun, but yeah,
It's the
it's
love of the
tough.
game. It is
The
tough.
love of
Each
the
kid
game, and
is,
it's really tough to not like push myself on him, because it's
yeah,
like I enjoy it and I want him to enjoy it, and I'm like, just do it, but like
for sure.
he's 4.
Yeah. And yeah, so it's I love a lot of different sports too. I frankly don't play as much, and I've even thought about it too, where I think you spend a lot more time with your kids. I try to play catch with them, but I just frankly don't. We fortunately go to the different parks nearby. We go out to play, but this did cross my mind recently where I was like, man, when was the last time I took my kids to go bike riding? And it's been a while. And just get busy with family, get busy with work, and somehow I prioritize myself, and I kind of feel bad, which is a separate thing that I know we've talked about, a lot of self guilt and blaming myself. But I ended up bringing my kid out. I said, "Hey, let's go for a bike ride." Like, nice. So I jumped in the car, went to the nearby park, and my younger son was upgrading to a slightly bigger bike. He was a little bit scared, but I said, "You know what? You got this." And he kind of took a few pedals, and he was off to the races. So before you knew it, so he'll be hopefully upgrading to a bigger bike already. But
Yeah, that's awesome.
my rabbit hole is we talked briefly about it, was just kind of vacation planning. And we did go on a international trip earlier in the year during spring break. We have another trip coming up over in the summer, and to be honest, the rabbit hole was watching a lot of documentaries and videos about sort of the airline industry. And it's kind of scary. With all the things that are happening in the world, things are going to get more and more expensive. What I learned from the video, whether true or not, it was saying that actually, while there is inflation going around with everything, gas prices, food prices, all different kinds of services, just you name it, there's also shrinkflation. Things are getting smaller while getting more expensive. Airlines and tickets actually have been lagging behind seemingly severely. So it allowed people to still have, especially with revenge, vacations, especially after COVID. There were as many years where we didn't go anywhere just because it was locked down. Everything was super expensive. Started to come back to reality. But the problem is with some of the budget airlines that either, can't make it, they don't, the fuel costs are just, skyrocketing. There is a good chance that, they're also realizing it started, what I watched is getting to the finances of it, that these airlines are realizing that regular economy seats don't actually make them that much money. Instead, they can
No,
add
yeah,
just a little bit more for a premium economy, but charge 10, 20, 30% more. So why wouldn't you do that? So
yeah.
there might be more and more of these airlines, changing it. And the crazy thing that I learned was that there are not that many airplane manufacturers. The main ones, Boeing, which has, a suspicious track record with quality assurance and things like that. There's also Airbus. And, those are some of the major ones. There are obviously other brands, but of those, they actually don't produce and deliver that many new planes every year. So what does that
They
mean?
they order
Well,
them years in advance.
they have to order them years in advance. So even if these companies go under, reskin them and rebadge them, but for the most part, it's the same airplanes flying every day. And if you think about how many people are going in the air, obviously safety is of top concern, but it's looming for us. We're thinking about, maybe we can't go on as many vacations. Again, we are very, fortunate to be able to plan for this and be able to have the finances. But if things continue to go the way that they are, I don't know how much more. It might have to be more local road trips and we'll have to meet up more often. But
Road trip across America.
yeah, it could be. That might be the future as our kids are getting older. But yeah,
Yep.
so that was my rabbit hole. A little bit kind of fear mongering a little bit and worries, but I'm hopeful. Well, but you also can't take away the experiences and the memories from vacation. So
Yep.
it is something that we are prioritizing. That is our rich life. We're trying to make sure that we're allocating the time and the money because our kids are only going to be this age once. They're going to
Yeah.
get older. That's not to say they're going to run away and suddenly disappear, or they might. Maybe they don't want to spend the time with us when they get older, but we're going to take advantage of it while we can.
Yeah. Their
Oh, yeah.
priorities change when they get older.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's really it. The wrap up and takeaway, I would kind of ask if anybody, got to the end of this and had some suggestions for, what they found interesting or quick tips for, how you meal prep and save money and just take care of yourself. We'd love to hear it. So yeah, any last words for you?
No, I just think that it's important to think about what you're eating and try to make try something new.
Yeah, that's a
'Cause
great suggestion.
just try something new. Don't even change anything. Just try something new. You might be shocked at what you like.
That's been one of my, I actually have that as a monthly goal and I've been complacent on it. But, I try a new recipe. And here's the thing, you probably will fail. But then you can
Yep.
start to experiment and realize, I really don't like this. Same thing with eating at restaurants. We're very fortunate. There's a plethora of places to try out, and even some of the good places, unfortunately, go under. Right? There's a lot of mom and pop places just due to the rising cost of rent. And if you don't try and give it a shot, it might not even be there anymore. So
Yeah.
you got, especially the local places, you really got to try and support them if your finances, accommodate for it. But yeah, that's a great idea. Give it a shot, try something new, and let us know how it goes. Awesome. Thanks, man. I guess we'll stay tuned and we'll talk soon.
Yep. Sounds good. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Take care.
Bye.